Hello, I'm Mark Pikert, editor-in-chief of The Gay Goods, and you are tuned into today's installment of The Gay Goodies with someone that I've been trying to get on the show for a while now, Dolf Dietrich. He and I go way, way back, maybe further back than either of us is willing to address during this conversation. And you might have heard he's had a little bit of personal drama. He's turning 50. That's the big thing going on in his life right now. But you know what? I'm not here to talk about Dolf Dietrich's age. Let's have Dolf Dietrich do that for us, shall we?
Hey.
Dolf Dietrich, when we first connected after I started The Gay Goods, we had no idea that we had worked with each other in a different life under different names.
That's right. You and I both worked at a magazine called HX here in New York City back in the day. If you lived in New York City.
Which is, of course, short for Homo Extra.
Yes, it is. It started at Wigstock. You know the history of it. Back in the day, it was just a flyer. And then it turned into sort of a huge institution in New York. And around the time that Splash was happening and all those big clubs, it was the go-to magazine. You couldn't get away from it. And I was the art director there when I first moved to New York City from Boston in 2000, I want to say 7. That was my first job in New York, and it really sort of opened my eyes to New York. I got to meet a lot of, interesting people, porn stars, performers, and go to Broadway shows, and it was just a magical time. It was really, really cool.
Well, and we really do not remember one another at all.
We do not.
Because we did work together. We must have. I did editorial with Brandon Voss. It was just the two of us. But you and I were both over 6 feet tall and probably each weighed 120 pounds at the time.
Yes. I was very lean and very skinny and green. Lean, skinny, and green to New York City.
Yes. And I think we both had like floppy, like very not great hair. I seem to remember both of us.
It was early 2000s. My favorite story about HX is it's how I got my name. So most people know if they don't, they'll know my real name now, which is Christopher. I was born Christopher. And when I started at HX, the editor, his name was Trenton Straub. I don't know if you remember him. But he and I were doing the magazine. The first issue that I ever done, I was the layout person. And we were doing the party pictures in the back of the magazine. And it was late at night because we went to press late because everything was fucked up. And, you remember HX. And so we were putting the names in the photo in the back of the party photos. And they had put me in one of them. They're like, the new art director for HX, Christopher Ellsworth. But it was so long, it wasn't fitting. And it was the last thing I was putting in for the night. And Trent said to me, he goes, well, gosh darn it, if you just dropped the Chris and called yourself Topher, we'd be done. And I said, you know what? I've been in New York City less than a week. I shall henceforth be called Topher. And so I sent an email out to the company and I said, my name is now Topher. I won't say my last name, but my name is Topher. And from there on, I reinvented myself. It's my New York reinvented. I've reinvented myself several times in New York City. I've left and come back 3 times in different incarnations. And but that was my first trip to New York, my first week.
Well, I was going to say, how did you go from Topher at HX to Dolf Dietrich, one of the major porn stars of the last decade?
Thank you. So I was always a wallflower when I grew up in Boston and went to Catholic school. And until I was 30, I had really, older than that. I moved to New York when I was 35, I think, maybe 34. And I had never owned a harness. I had never been to a sex club. I just had like relationship sex and nothing weird or nothing fetishy or like what I do now. And I remember going to Christopher Street for my first time. We used to do this thing when we lived in Boston. We take the feng shui bus down and we would do the Christopher Street crawl, we called it. We'd start at Pieces, which is 1 Christopher Street, and we'd work our way all the way down to I can't remember the other bars, but we just work our way all the way down.
The Hanger, Ties
was at the end. So
Boots and Saddles,
loved it. So I remember going into the Leatherman once, And I'm like, I was so nervous. I thought it was so exotic that I would go into a leather shop. And I wanted a harness. I never even tried on a piece of leather in my life. But New York was starting to open me up a little bit, so to speak. And I went down into there's a spiral staircase that goes down in the Leatherman. It's a tiny little shop. And the man took one look at me. He knew I was chicken, basically. And he was like, okay, well, let's get you naked. And I'm like, wait, I have to get naked to wear a harness? And he's like, yeah, that's the way it works. And then he was like, put his hand he had to test the girth of my cock, where my cock meets my body. He's like, I have to do this because that's how you test. That's how you get the right fit. And of course, I started to get hard, and I turned red, and he just loved it. And I ran out of there with my bag, like practically in tears, and I had my first harness. And then the rest was history. I started working with porn stars. My first photo shoot was with a porn star who has since passed away. His name was Eric Rhodes. He was quite a large, both physically and his presence was a big man. And I remember we did a Valentine shoot for him, and I had him laid out in candy hearts, shot it from above, and I had like 10,000 candy hearts all around him, and he had a lollipop. And it was my first photo shoot I art directed for HX. And, I started to become friends with him, got to know him. He had a very sad ending, demise. But, I started hanging out with Amanda Lepore and going to all the clubs. I was a club kid again, Suzanne Barsh's parties, all of that. I just soaked everything I could in. Lady Bunny used to throw this party at this spa, this like place down on the tip of the island that was like a Russian spa. So there was pools and like sex rooms, and Lady Bunny would do her numbers, and it was just crazy. So that's how I got to know New York at first. Now I forgot what the initial question was, but that's how we know each other.
How did you
know each other?
But how did you become a porn star?
Oh, so then, I was born with a condition called Pectus Excavatum, which is a sunken chest syndrome. So my chest was basically like a concave mixing bowl. It was so deep, there was probably that much space between my spine and the center of my chest. So I never, ever, ever took my shirt off in public. That's another reason that I was just so shy sexually. And so I was working at Next magazine after HX, their competitor. Yes. And but actually they gave me really good health insurance. And I had been trying to get the surgery to fix it for a long time because I knew that I had something else in me that I wanted to be. I wanted to recreate myself. And so I petitioned Blue Cross Blue Shield or whatever it was at the time. They denied. They said it was cosmetic. I finally had all these photos taken by my assistant in my office at Next of all angles of it to show how intense it was. You can see them on my Twitter. I have before and after. And I had to go take an EKG test where they put the things all over your head. And my boyfriend at the time said, here, just take this Adderall, take this Viagra, take whatever he had in his medicine cabinet before you get on the treadmill. He also gave me this stuff called liquid cocaine, which was like you could buy it in a bodega for 1 week in New York City. It was like a rock star or monster, and it was like before Red Bull, but it had like 10,000 milligrams of caffeine in it, and they called it liquid cocaine. You just drank it to be like caffeinated out of your mind. So I drank that. It was 8 o'clock in the morning on the Upper East Side. I get on the treadmill. I start feeling like the blood pumping, and I'm like, oh shit. Whatever I've taken this morning has really made me like, yeah. So the doctor said, oh my goodness, you're off the charts. You can barely walk. So you need this surgery. A few months later, I'll never forget it. I'm in Kmart in Astor Place. And I get a phone call. I didn't recognize the number. I picked it up. It was Blue Cross Blue Shield. And they said, you've been approved for this, $70,000 surgery, and let's book you in. And I went to the New York Presbyterian Hospital a few months later. They broke my sternum, pulled up my chest, did a certain kind of surgery on it. They put a titanium bar inside my chest. And I remember the recovery, which was very brutal. The doctor said, and I was emaciated, I was skinny, I was sick, depressed from the medications. And the doctor said to me, he's like, you went through all that hell. He goes, but basically you're never going to be able to gain any muscle or any mass. And so I'm not quite sure why you did that. And I was like, fuck you inside my head. I'm like, I'll show you. So as soon as I was strong enough, actually the first thing I had to go do was the swim. When I was like 2 weeks into it, I had to go do the swimsuit issue for Next. So I was like hobbled and like directing the swimsuit issue, like our annual swimsuit issue. But I was like, I'm going to reinvent myself. So I went to the gym like madman. I conceived all of my tattoos that I have. I picked the name Dolf Dietrich. In the interim, I actually moved to Provincetown for a summer, which turned into like a 6-year saga of living there year round. And I lived between Provincetown and Paris. I met a Frenchman and I started dating him for 6 years. So I spent half of my time in Paris and then half of my time in Provincetown. And I would go to New York when I needed to go. But so the Dolf thing, long story, started as I was living in P-Town. I was working graphic design on freelance for different companies, Edge Media Network, if you remember them. I worked for Edge Media Network as well. So I did all the gay circuit medias. And I one night I just like something popped up on my computer, it's like be a webcam model. And I'm like, hey, I can do that. I'm bored as fuck. It's the middle of winter in P-Town. And so I created the name Dolf Dietrich. And since I'm a marketing person, I did all marketing, went to college for it. And that's what I do for companies. I said, I can be my own best client. I can create a brand. I can promote that brand. I also had one of my best friends in P-Town was an amazing photographer, and I was his muse for a few years. He took me all over P-Town to the most beautiful locations you could imagine. And I was in physical top shape by that point. And he shot all of my first photos, like 100 beautiful photos that are still used to this day, even though they're, almost 10 years old. But they sort of launched me. So I had the media, I had the assets, I had the talent, I had the cock, I had the look, I had the personality. When people ask me, they're like, how do you become a porn star? I'm like, it's not just, having a big dick or a pretty face or a great body. You got to show up and you got to deliver. You have to be, on point all the time. Don't fuck people over. Just really market yourself. It just takes, it's a whole package. It's like a company. I'm my own company and I treat it like that.
Well, especially now, I mean, there was always the webcamming for the last 10 years, but with the rise of the fan platforms, all of a sudden, porn stars have to look great, be able to come on command, but they also have to be video editors, talent scouts, casting directors, videographers, lighting designers, marketing, social media managers. I mean, it's insane that all of you still have time to, look good and come.
Well, I'll tell you, I was not a big fan of OnlyFans when it came around because I came from the studio background. I've probably shot, I would say, at least 2 to 3, I don't know how many, 200 to 300 studio films. So in 9 years, that's a lot. So I'm used to, showing up, looking pretty, being on point, delivering the cum shot, having the lighting is taken care of. I have director, I have a boom, I've got a mic, or whatever, and like the location's all set, all this stuff. And then the video comes out and it looks beautiful and whatever. So then OnlyFans came along and I'm like, yeah, I don't really feel like this is my thing. I'm really good at graphic design. I don't want to do video editing. I don't want to do filming. I don't want to do lighting. At first I was very against it. Then a few years back at the beginning of COVID, which seems like a few years back now.
Yeah.
I met a guy named Jack McEnroth, who actually we had been circling each other for years too, because when I worked at HX and Next, he was on a lot of the covers and I dealt with him and his publicist and we just, it was so strange that we had circled around each other for like 8 or 9 years in Manhattan, never actually met. I remember I waved to him once on the street. And then during COVID, I was at my gym and he walked past me on the stairs and he said, hey, Topher, which kind of struck me because nobody knows my real name usually, unless I really know them. And I said, who I couldn't recognize him because of the mask, and we literally never met. So I went over to him later before I left the gym, and I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't know who you are. And he pulled the mask down, and he's like, it's Jack Wagnerroth. And they're like, oh, Jack. So I ended up when I left, I had his number in my phone, of course, because we'd just known each other. And I texted him if he wanted to go out for coffee. And we did it for the next 6 months or so. And we did OnlyFans. He taught me a lot about OnlyFans and how to produce it. It's a lot of work. Because I'd never really done that. So he's been doing OnlyFans, and he was one of the top OnlyFans creators for a very long time since it began. So he taught me a lot about that. Unfortunately, we're no longer together. We separated recently.
I might have heard something about that, just in the gay ether floating around. It seemed like it was not a great breakup, to be frank.
Unfortunately, it wasn't. I don't think breakups are ever super. I mean, I guess some people have great breakups, like Gwyneth Paltrow supposedly had a great breakup with her partner.
You have to be super rich to have a great breakup. That's the rule number one.
Exactly. So one of the things that made it a little bit harder is we live in the same building. So he lives below me. So there's that. I wish nothing but the best for Jack and all of the happiness in the world. I love the good parts of him. I'm one of those guys who just, I'm forgiving, and I still love all the men I've ever been with. I've been very lucky in love, even though I'm single again. But I feel like those experiences that I've taken from my boyfriend in Paris, and I was married before that, and had some interludes with some other people in the industry. I carry the good memories with me, and that's what I choose to remember and just really keep with me. And the bad stuff, I try and just put it aside and learn from it. So yeah.
I mean, that's a remarkably generous reaction to Jack's version of things, which is not painting you in a particularly flattering or legal light. It's unfortunate that he's feeling the need to create some sort of narrative that really isn't true. I've decided to take the high road. Those who know me understand that I'm a stand-up kind of guy, and I just, I'm transparent. I have nothing to hide. So there was no reason for me to really fight back. He, like I said, he's decided to take a very different road than me. So, while my Twitter feed is all puppies and rainbows, his is more like toxic land. So, that's his choice. If he wants to take that route, it'll all pan out. And, it's already been worked out this morning that we've decided that we're, have a truce, and that we're not going to, we're hopefully just going to talk, remember the good times. And that's what I want. I don't want to do on anything bad. He can say what he wants, but I'm doing good. Well, and you have to maintain some kind of civility at the mailbox in your apartment building. Otherwise, it's going to be a free-for-all.
Exactly. No, it's not easy, but being an adult sometimes isn't, but you just have to do it. You suck it up and be cordial, and nod and go on your way and do your thing. And that's what I plan on doing.
So was your conversation this morning productive? Did you feel like there's some closure?
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of things that we both regret, that I think that we can't take back, but we learned from them. So I just wish him the best. Honestly, like I said, I love the great parts of him. He's an amazing, talented, beautiful, smart, funny man. And I just I can say nothing except I wish him all the happiness in the world.
And so now, once again, you are on the precipice of a reinvention in New York City.
It's true. This will be my fourth, I think. I was a club kid. I was a corporate boy. I was a porn star. I am a porn star. And now I'm on the verge of my second coming of porndom, I guess we call it. So,
Which is coinciding with your 50th birthday.
thank you for reminding me, Mark. Yes, in such a gleeful way. Yeah, it's coming up June 12th. I can't believe it. It's going to be crazy. Yeah, it's been a really rough year. It's been a really, really, really rough year for a lot of us. I lost my mother and my father within months of each other.
During COVID. Man, I'm so sorry.
Thank you. And I also lost my dog at the same time. My rescue dog. I adopt rescue Chihuahuas that are senior, and my current one is Joey. He's 11 years old now. I got him when I was in Palm Springs, and he's great. No one would adopt him because he was really kind of like, he was messed up looking. He was missing hair. He wouldn't play, missing his teeth. He was deaf. He's 10 years old. But as soon as I met him, I'm like, this guy's going to be my buddy. And he came right up to me.
Are you adopting the Celebutante cast-off Chihuahuas that they got for like a day to carry around in their bags?
I don't think Joey ever belonged to Paris Hilton. He's more of a junkyard dog. I don't know his history. He was found wandering in Palm Springs with a shock collar around his neck and a bloody mouth and missing hair. Since I've had him, he's gained 5 pounds. He's just a loving dog, although he didn't like Jack, unfortunately. Jack was just watching my dog when I was on vacation in Mexico. I had to come home early because the dogs, I was just worried about my dog's welfare. I love my dog more than anything in the world. So I have
dogs always know. Dogs always know.
I have a sweet spot, especially for the senior dogs, because they are overlooked a lot and they can give you the most love. And while it's incredibly hard, I only had my last dog, Tiger, for 12 months before he passed of congestive heart failure. But he was my best friend, and it was the hardest day of my life when I lost him. And it'll be the hardest day of my life when Joe has to go over the rainbow. But right now, he's my best buddy.
So what are your plans now that New York City is emerging from COVID? You are newly single and armed with a ton of OnlyFans knowledge, newly.
I just wanted to say one more thing about rescue dogs. Sorry.
Fine.
I would say please adopt, don't shop. That's my big thing. There's a lot of animals out there that need love, so don't go buy a dog if you can. Just adopt one. Well,
that's also why I always went to Townhouse, because the senior gay men there have a lot of love to give, and often a credit card with a high limit.
Exactly. So that's what I would say about that. So 2021 is starting to open up. I did my first live show already. It was, I think, about 2 weeks ago. I did it with Jack, actually, in Florida at a place called Sawmill Gay Camp Resort. It's a great place. It's in Halstead, something like that in Florida. If you ever get a chance to go, you can rent cabins, and they have like RVs, and they have like a bar and a dance floor and a pool. And they hired us to do a live show there. So it was Jack's first live show. He did a great job. He was a real trooper. To get fucked in front of a group of 100, 200 people is not easy. But I've been doing it for 10 years, so I had experience. So I talked him through it, and he was nervous, but he was real cute and good about it. And unfortunately, that will be our first and last live show together. But so that happened. So it felt good to get back in the swing of things. It was my first booking. And now I have some things coming up this month and next month over the summer. I'm just looking at my notes here. Yeah. Well, hell's bells. I wrote it all down. Okay. I'm not seeing it. So, well, I have something coming up. I know. I'm going to have to look at my phone. So my friend Ray Dalton, I shot my very first scene with ever. And you're going to have to forgive me. I just got
a small technical difficulty.
Well, I just got my first. I had to get a new computer. Unfortunately, mine went missing, so I had to buy a new computer, and I just unpacked it and plugged it in so I could talk to you. And now it's giving me an alert that I'm like out of batteries. So just give me 1 second. Da da da. I'll do a little song and dance while I do this, and I'll talk about Ray Dalton. So Ray Dalton is a great buddy of mine. We've been in the industry about as long as each other. I filmed my first scene with him for Dickwad Media about 9 years ago, and he now has a party called Fornication Party. It's fornicationparty.com. You can follow him on Twitter at raydaltonxxx.com. He's a great, sexy daddy guy like me, I think, and he throws these parties where you can pay an entry and you get to hang out with 4 porn stars at a time, including himself. And I will be one of those for the party coming up in August 6th and 7th, I believe. And of course, I had that written down, so now I'm not 100% sure. And that's going to be in Washington, D.C. So you can check out fornicationparty.com to get details about that while I look for a plug to plug you in. And then we're doing Southern Decadence, which is my favorite event.
All right. So there's also Southern Decadence that is happening in New Orleans.
So for those of you who have not experienced Southern Decadence, it is one of the funnest events I've ever done. It was the first place I ever did a live sex show. It's just crazy, party, fun, good times. And that'll be happening the last week of September, I believe. What is that? Memorial Day? It's Friday, September 3rd through Sunday, September 5th. I'll be doing a fornication party for Ray Dalton, location yet to be determined. And I'm sure I'll be doing a few other places as well. For many years, I've worked at Rawhide. And I think this year I might be working at Phoenix, I hope. So we'll see how that goes. And so check that out at fornicationparty.com for all of his dates that he's got coming up. And then the last thing that I have coming up this very soon is May 21st, a party called Milk Chocolate New York City. And I've worked, my buddy Cade has thrown this party now for years, usually at Paddles, which is right in Chelsea near me, which is reopening in June. But now he's doing it at the Rainbow Playground in Queens. You can check out rainbowplaygroundclub.com. I will be doing a party on the 21st at 8 o'clock. I will be taking a few bottoms and showing them the ropes in a sling for an exhibition, if you want to call it that. And then I'll be jumping in the sling myself and auditioning 8-inch plus hung tops to perform on Memorial Day weekend, which is a big deal. So it's a masked event, so you have to be masked. And that's going to be at Rainbow Playground in Queens.
I mean, from turning bright red at Mr. Leather to doing live sex shows and auditioning 8-inch tops in 2021. What a New York City journey you have been on.
I'm telling you, man, I am just on cloud nine. And it is when I think about my story and think about the shy guy I used to be. My life didn't really start. I'm not the person I am today until I moved to New York City. Just like Sex and the City, this city has a character in my life. It was a character in the show, and it's a character in my life. But yeah, I'm pretty excited. I'm finally feeling like the daddy that I was always meant to be. It just happens to be coinciding with turning 50. I said I was a daddy last year, the year before, and I always knew I was getting there. But now I'm 100%. I'm telling you, I feel like a daddy alpha boy. Just a great daddy alpha kind of figure in my career, and it's a great feeling. So,
well, good. I'm glad that everything continues to work out based on every new reinvention. I've always said you're the Madonna of gay porn.
Thank you. I'd rather be the Kylie though, but okay. My life has been a movie of the past few days of like War of the Roses, Gone Girl, and Fatal Attraction. So if you were to make a movie, so if you take those 3 movies and you made one movie, and I'm not telling you any details here, but just pretend those 3 movies was my life for the past week or longer than that, it would be a good movie. It would be wild.
I mean, I just want to see Rosamund Pike, Glenn Close, and Kathleen Turner star as sisters in a movie or something.
Oh
now,
yeah,
frankly.
and hanging from the chandelier like they did in War of the Roses in the last scene.
Oh yeah. Well, now the movie's come to an end, and maybe you can get a Goldie Hawn sitcom or a comedy at least.
It is the end. Everything is starting fresh. There is no, it's all good. Like I said, we're back on track today. There's nothing more is posted. It's all been taken down, and it's been apologized for the most part. So on to healing.
Yes, and on to milk chocolate, rainbow playground, sex parties.
Fornication, yeah.
Dolf, thank you so much for joining me today. This was a delight and long overdue. I'm so glad that we were able to finally make it happen.
It was great to see you, Mark. Thank you so much. I wish you all the best. And thank you to all my fans for supporting me. Thank you to all my fans for supporting me and following me for all these years. You can catch me at Dolf Dietrich on Twitter. And say hey. Okay? Thank you.
All right. Thank you all for watching, and tune in next week for another special episode of The Gay Goodies.